I'm Heather Vale.
And I'm Dr. Steve G. Jones.
And joining us today is Stephanie Mulac, an online entrepreneur, speaker, and personal development expert. Thank you so much for being here, Stephanie.
Thank you, my pleasure.
So today we're talking about milestone mapping, and this is a process that Stephanie's going to share with us. What exactly is that? Sounds so interesting.
Well, it's something that I specifically developed in relationship to taking a look at how people are usually taught to do mind maps or do to-do lists or any of the types of processes that we've commonly been taught in order to come up with a goal or a plan and see that plan through to realization. And I always had problems in terms of to-do lists or any type of a structured tree type thing, because as you ultimately start at the top of this page and you start to create any type of a to-do list, what happens is that it starts to go all the way down the page and it grows bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it just sort of goes off into infinity and gets bigger and larger as you go. So that was not something that was level of comfort for me. Then you have a mind map, which typically you are starting out in the central part of the page and you're working your way out with branches of to-do and action items and things like that. But again, it's all based on growth, and it's based on presupposing that you are the one who knows what is going to happen along the way from point A to point B. And therein lies the entire essence of what milestone mapping ultimately is, because in reality, in all of our lives, when we set a goal for something or we set our sights on some accomplishment or something that we want to achieve, we really don't know what is going to lie along that path from point A to point B. We can have the faith that we know that once we have set our intentions on something, that we have the ability to manifest it, but what happens along the path is ultimately many times out of our control. And so milestone mapping, I developed it as a process by which people actually will start with, and you can do this in any way that is comfortable to you. Some people very visual, they want to get out a sheet of paper, they may use a journal, they may cut and paste things and put them on poster board, they may utilize a computer, but the essence of this, however you feel most comfortable utilizing the tools, is to actually start with what your goal is and put that in the center of the page or the work surface that you're dealing with. And then you literally will draw spokes out from the center of the page like you would have spokes of a wheel. And at that point, you just walk away.
And you're done.
You are literally almost done with the process at that point, because what you have done is you've set your intention to the world. I'm going to drive that red Ferrari, I'm going to go on a vacation, I'm going to build the business of my dreams, I'm going to do XYZ, whatever it happens to be. Now, at that point, your role is to take inspired action to determine what steps loosely that you want to start to follow in order to achieve that goal. But instead of writing them down and putting them in, setting them in stone in a fashion and saying that I know that this is not going to occur unless I do what I've just written on this paper and this step and that step and this step, what it is that you're saying to the universe, I really have the intention set, but now as I start to take action toward this, I am going to consciously monitor the things that are happening around me that are allowing this to come to reality or this project to come to fruition. So for example, let's say that you take somebody who ultimately wants to change their living circumstances and they want to move from a residence in one city to another city, but they start out from the standpoint and say, I really don't have the money to be able to move right now. I'm going to need a job in order to do this. I'm going to need to pack up and, fund that transportation of all of my property from this location to that location and everything. What that person's going to do is that person's going to put in the center of their work surface the fact that they are in this new city, in the condo of their dreams, the location of their dreams, and they simply then are going to start working a loose plan, but as those things happen, they are going to actually, at the end of these spokes, they're going to start logging the events in their life that are happening to be able to accomplish that. So let's say, for example, the person is needing to raise more capital, and after they've set this intention, a couple of days later they go to work and there's a memo that's circulating saying that there's an opportunity to put in for some overtime or an opportunity to work on a side project that is going to ultimately conclude with a financial bonus at the end of the project completion. They would then go home and they would log and write down the fact that they went to work and they saw that opportunity for additional income. They're logging that.
So that goes on one of the spokes?
That goes on one of the spokes.
Okay.
And they subsequently are going to do all of this. Now let's say while they're working with, on this project, one of their colleagues that they're working with happens to mention that he or she has a niece or an aunt or an uncle or a relative in the city that that person wants to move to. They're going to log that on one of those spokes.
Okay.
Then they may have a contact for a job opportunity through that friend that they just happened to meet while they were doing this overtime, and they're going to log that. And the whole point here, kind of advancing toward reaching that goal, is that each of you, I'm sure, and all of our audience can say that they can reflect back on things that have happened in their lives when they have accomplished a goal or they have set an intention for something that they want in their life. How often have you heard people say, I don't know how I got here and I got it done, but I never would have believed all the steps and all of the little coincidences or all of the ironic things that happened along the way.
Yeah.
But when you've got to the end point and you look back, you
Hindsight's
realize
20/20.
exactly, you realize that all those things that happened, whether they were good or bad or they were perceived challenges or any of those types of things, they all added up to the sum of getting you to this point. So the milestone mapping process is essentially reverse engineering that and saying that I have set an intention and I've put it out there to the universe, and now I am going to simply be an observer and excitedly logging and recording all of these things that are happening because I know these are the things that are taking me to the direction that I'm wanting to go.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It is, and it also sounds like this would be the making of a book, like a how-to book. Once it's all done, once you've lived it, once it's already happened, you just go back and use those notes.
This is how I did it.
Yeah. How do you do this? Well, here's how I did it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the really cool thing is, law of attraction teachers will often say, don't worry about the how. It's not your business how it gets done. You put your intention, that's your focus. So as opposed to goal setting, you're saying you choose the what, forget the how, forget the when, forget everything else. You've got the what and the other pieces will fall into place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's something that I have done over and over again in my life. It's something that I've been able to reflect on and be able to show people that when you end up in a certain location that you are able to look back and realize that there were things that were at play that you never had any idea that were part of the bigger scheme of things, but again staying open to them and embracing them instead of resisting them is really what it all comes down to. The resistance is the key factor that you want to avoid.
Yeah, because when people set out and they say, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, they tend to not want to stray from that. Like, they feel that even though they've only written it on paper, they feel like they've written it in stone.
Exactly.
And so then they miss these other opportunities that are right there in front of them, but they just don't see them.
And from a psychological standpoint, what are we all told? When you are doing something, you know, even when you're making lists or, you know, you are writing something that, you know, the good old-fashioned pen and paper will lock it in a lot more. But the key here is to not put yourself in a position to lock it in and not put yourself in a position to feel like you have either been let down. And the minute that it is on paper, psychologically, it's in stone. And if you fail to live up to that, human nature says that, okay, well then I'm moving further away from this goal, when in fact, what has just happened in many instances is pushing you miles ahead of reaching that goal. But if you resist it, then that's where the problems start to come in.
Right, yeah.
Very fascinating. And so how does this relate to the idea of chunking? You know, the idea of chunking, you have something to do, you break it down into smaller steps, or you have a lot of steps, seems like too many steps, you chunk it up into maybe groups of steps. Does this bear any relationship to chunking whatsoever?
It really does, in a sense, because that's exactly what it is that you are doing, is you're looking at all of the aspects or the component parts that are involved in getting you to that end goal and getting you to the completion of what you've set your intention on. And it's making you become very aware of what those component parts are, because you're actually acknowledging them, and you're also going through a psychological process of being grateful for them.
Yeah.
Nice.
So beyond just the chunking, which oftentimes is to make something large seem more manageable, in this instance, when you're doing the chunking and you're utilizing it in this fashion, when you're writing something, you know, you go home at the end of the day and or something happens throughout the day and you go, I'm going home and I'm going to put this on my milestone map. That in and of itself is embracing the concept of gratitude.
Okay.
And we know the importance of gratitude and how that takes us toward our goals. So that acknowledgement becomes something that is embracing the gratitude that is ultimately creating a balance in the whole structure of what we're talking about.
Okay, so there's some people who hate goal setting for the very reasons you're talking about. And when someone tells them, oh no, you've got to make these time delimited goals, you've got to set it, they go, and they just, you know, they shut down. Basically, it's a resistance, so they never end up achieving it using that. It sounds like this would be perfect for those people. Now, on the other hand, there's some analytical people that thrive on, this is how I'm going to do it, and this is a step to step. And the milestone map to them might seem like, I've left it too open. I've got no safety net. So what do you say to them?
Well, as someone who is both analytical and very methodical, but also very adventurous at the same time, there is a certain amount of faith. I mean, I teach this in my coaching, and I've had people that feel that this is far too freeform. Mm-hmm. And what I tell them is that we don't want you to go outside of your comfort zone. Let this just initially be a supplement to what it is that you typically do. But I'll very quickly say, even if this feels like it's a little bit inconsistent with your level of comfort, the last time you made a to-do list, did you check everything off of it? And oftentimes that's right at the point that they will say, okay, you're right, yes, I am analytical, and it is a level of comfort for me that I need to be able to map out all of this in order to keep the balance and the structure in my life. But the reality is that I never work that plan, and that's why I'm here looking for another change or another solution and a different approach to doing it, because what I've been doing hasn't been working. So I encourage people that if they need to both create their milestone map and then on a separate sheet of paper start to, you know, do their traditional to-do list or their flow chart that's going to flow into infinity, or their mind map that is going to broaden into infinity. Go ahead and do that. You know, it isn't something like that if you have that on one sheet of paper that this other sheet of paper is going to wither away. But just simply with that in hand, create your milestone map
Name a few services that you like, a few autoresponder services. By the way, autoresponder is called that because it's automatically responding. You set up the email so it automatically goes out once they sign in the squeeze page. What are a few services you like, a few autoresponder services?
The one you're going to hear about the most is Aweber. Get Response is another one, Constant Contact.
Aweber.com,
Aweber.
getresponse.com,
Constant Contact.
contact.com. We don't make any money off of these, but none of us do. They're just it's helpful information. Okay.
Yes.
Any others that you like?
Some people will use MailChimp getting started because it is a free service.
MailChimp.com.
MailChimp.com does have some limitations, and as your list grows, with any of the services, the price is going to go up based on either the size of your list or how much you're mailing. But ideally, as your list grows, you're making more money if you're leveraging that list properly. So your monthly charges going up are going to be offset by the income and the money that you're making once you're building a list.
Okay, so putting a squeeze page with a gift on it is one strategy that can go well in conjunction with a giveaway, or I guess we could market to that squeeze page through social media or through other means. What about also, I mean, we started off talking about making a product and or selling the product. So when people land on that product page that you're promoting, only a very small percentage of people are expected to buy it. Like, let's say 2 people out of 100 might buy your product. What do you think about building a list on that page as well for the people that otherwise would just leave?
Absolutely, and there's a lot of techniques that you can do with that where when they come to that page for the product, you can either embed something in that page to still give them something that is a free and compatible product or tied into what it is that you're selling, and use that as a lead-in. So essentially, okay, maybe you're not ready to buy the main product and you're not ready to spend money because really you may not know me from Adam. You
Right.
don't know whether you even like me or whether or not you resonate with my message or my product or whatever it is that I'm promoting, but you give them an opportunity still on that sales page to be able to opt in, which is that process of putting your name and your email into a form that is embedded on that sales page, and they can get some type of an introductory free product that is still ultimately going to be leading them in the direction of the larger product that you're selling, but that gives them an opportunity to know, like, and trust you, get a little taste of what your training style is, what your style of teaching and implementing whatever this product is. So it's an excellent way to be able to have somebody to get to know you a little bit better even before the purchase.
Yeah, and then so the autoresponder follow-up emails would be, introducing them again to the product that they originally saw and left from.
Exactly.
Yeah, great idea. Okay, well, Stephanie, this has been great. You've taught us, on one segment you told us about the inner world success strategies, and now you're telling us about the outer world success strategies for anyone who wants to start their own online business. Great information. Thank you so much. Now, if people want to follow up with you and find out more about you, where do they do that?
They would do that at stephaniemulac.com.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thanks,
Thank
Stephanie.
you. Thank you.
I'm Heather Vale,
And I'm Dr. Steve G. Jones.
helping you heat up your success at hotsuccesssecrets.com.